Wind slammed the barn door shut, and Etta Cross froze in the dark field, one hand still on the broken gate lock. Somewhere behind her, Silas was shouting her name, his lantern swinging wild through the black morning air. She did not turn. She could not turn. Her eyes were locked on the empty pen where 40 cattle should have been standing, chewing grass, breathing slow clouds of warm air into the cold. There was nothing, just flattened dirt and hoofprints running north like a wound cut into the earth. Silas reached her out of breath, lantern shaking in his hand. "Miss Etta," he gasped, "they're gone, every last one, all 40. Etta said nothing. She knelt down slow, right there in the mud, and pressed her palm flat against a hoofprint like she was trying to feel some warmth still left in it. Silas stared at her. He expected tears. He expected her knees to buckle, her voice to break, the way any woman might, alone on a ranch with her husband 2 years dead, and now this, everything gone in one dark night. Instead, Etta picked up a fistful of dirt and let it run slow through her fingers, watching it fall like she was counting seconds. Then she stood up, and she laughed. It was short, sharp, with no joy in it at all, but it was a laugh, and it made Silas take a step back like she had struck him. "Miss Etta," he said, careful now, like she might be losing her mind from the shock of it. "Get Dust saddled," Etta said. Her voice was flat and calm, too calm, the kind of calm that scares a person more than screaming would. "Saddled, Miss Etta, it's still dark. We ought to wait for light, ride for the sheriff." "Sheriff's 2 days off," Etta said, already walking toward the barn. "Tracks'll be cold by the time he wipes the sleep from his eyes." "You mean to go alone? A woman alone after 5 sets of boot tracks and a stolen herd?" Silas hurried after her, lantern light jumping across her back. "That's madness, Miss Etta, pure madness." Etta stopped at the barn door. She turned, and in the lantern light her face was hard as the dry ground beneath them, eyes dry too, not one tear on her cheek. "Everything I own walked off in that dark," she said. "My husband's dead. This ranch is all I got left of him, and all I got left, period. I ain't asking you to understand it, Silas. I'm asking you to hand me that saddle." Silas stood frozen, mouth open, unsure whether to admire her or fear for her. Etta took the saddle from the wall herself, threw it over Dust's back, and pulled the strap tight with a hard, final tug. "Nobody takes what's mine," she said, "and keeps it." Dust's hooves beat a slow, steady rhythm against the dry ground as Etta rode north, the sun climbing hot and white above her. She had been riding since before dawn, and her back ached, and her lips had already cracked from the wind. She did not stop to rest. Every hour she lost was an hour the thieves gained. By midday, she reached a dry riverbed cutting through the land like an old scar. She slid off Dust and walked bent low, eyes on the ground, reading the tracks the way her husband once taught her to read them. Deep prints meant tired cattle. Scattered prints meant men pushing them hard and fast. 5 men, she whispered to herself, counting boot marks pressed into the cracked mud. 40 head, moving north toward the hills. She mounted again and rode on, the canyon walls rising slowly around her, turning from pale gray to deep orange as the sun sank low. She ate a strip of dried meat without stopping, chewing slow to make it last, her canteen already half empty. Night came cold and sharp. Etta wrapped herself in her blanket, the revolver closed beside her hand, and she did not truly sleep, only rested her eyes, listening to every sound the wind carried. A coyote cried somewhere far off. She did not flinch. On the second day she lost the tracks where the ground turned to hard rock. She got down from Dust and walked in slow circles, searching, her jaw tight with worry. For nearly an hour she found nothing. Then, low against a boulder, she saw it, a single hoofprint, half hidden in dust. "There you are," she muttered, and swung back up into the saddle. By the third night, exhaustion sat heavy in her bones. Her hands were raw from the reins. Her eyes burned from lack of sleep. But then, far ahead, deep inside a narrow canyon, she saw it, a small orange glow, flickering against the dark canyon walls. Firelight. Eda's heart began to pound. She tied Dust to a low bush a mile back, patting the old mare's neck once softly. "Stay quiet now," she whispered. "I'll be back for you." She walked the rest of the way on foot, silent, crouching low behind rocks and brush. As she came closer, she counted shapes around the fire. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 men, laughing loud, passing a bottle of whiskey between them, careless and sure of themselves. And beyond them, penned inside a rough rope corral, she saw dark shapes shifting restlessly in the firelight. Her breath caught in her throat. Her cattle, all of them, alive. Eda pressed herself flat against the cold rock and stayed there, watching, waiting, her heart hammering loud in her ears, thinking only one thought over and over. Not yet. Wait. Watch. Then take back what's yours. The fire had burned down to low orange coals, and 4 of the 5 men lay sprawled around it, snoring, empty whiskey bottles lying beside them in the dirt. Only one man still sat awake, his rifle resting loose across his knees, his chin dropping slowly toward his chest, fighting sleep and losing. Eda watched him from the rocks, counting her own heartbeats, waiting for his head to fall still. When it did, she moved. She crept forward low and silent, keeping to the shadows between boulders until she reached the rope corral where her cattle stood pressed together, restless and afraid. She recognized the old lead cow at once, even in the dark. "Belle," she whispered, barely a breath of sound. "It's me, girl, easy now." Belle's ears turned toward her voice. The big cow grew still, calm, trusting, just like she always had since Eda raised her as a calf. One by one, the other cattle quieted too, sensing safety in a voice they knew. Eda drew her knife slow and cut the rope ties, one after another, careful not to let them snap or fall loud against the ground. Her hands moved fast now, though her heart pounded harder with every cut. Then she did something no one watching would have believed. She grabbed a fistful of Belle's thick neck hair, swung herself up onto the cow's broad back, and pressed her knees tight against its sides. "Go, girl," she shouted, no longer caring about silence. "Go now." Belle surged forward with a startled bellow, and the whole herd broke into motion behind her. A wall of 40 bodies crashing out of the canyon like water bursting through a broken dam. The guard woke with a shout, scrambling for his rifle. "Hey, hey, wake up the cattle." The other men jolted up, confused. Grabbing guns, firing wild shots into the dark that hit nothing but rock and shadow. One bullet whistled past Eda's shoulder. Another tore through her sleeve, and she felt a burning line cut across her arm. She did not stop. She held tight to Belle's neck, guiding the herd with sharp cries and the pressure of her knees, steering them through the narrow canyon paths she had memorized on her way in 3 nights before. Dust rose thick around her. Hooves thundered like drums. Somewhere behind her, men shouted and cursed, but their voices grew smaller, farther away, swallowed by darkness and distance. Blood ran warm down her arm, soaking into her sleeve. She barely felt it. All she felt was the herd moving beneath and around her, alive, hers again, carrying her home through the Black Canyon night. By the time the thieves found their horses and gave chase, Eda and the cattle had vanished into the maze of rock and shadow, gone like smoke on the wind, leaving nothing behind but scattered hoofprints, and the fatting echo of 40 hooves. Silas stood by the fence, eyes fixed on the horizon, watching a thin cloud of dust rise slow against the pale morning sky. His heart pounded. He had waited 3 days, barely sleeping, jumping at every sound the wind carried. Now, at last, something was coming. He squinted hard, shading his eyes with one hand. Then he saw her. Eda rode toward the ranch on the broad back of an old cow, her body slumped forward with exhaustion, one arm wrapped tight in a torn strip of cloth stained dark with dried blood. Her hair hung loose and tangled, her face burned red from days of sun and wind. But her eyes, though tired, still burned bright and steady. Behind her, stretching back across the dry land, walked the whole herd, all 40 cattle, worn and thin, moving slow but alive, following her like she was leading a parade only she could hear. Silas dropped the bucket he was holding. It hit the ground with a dull thud forgotten. He ran toward her, his old legs stumbling in the dirt. "Miss Etta," he shouted, his voice cracking. "Miss Etta, is that it's you? It's really you." Etta pulled Belle to a slow stop just inside the gate. She sat there a moment, swaying slightly, before sliding down off the cow's back. Her legs buckled the instant they touched the ground, weak from days of riding, and Silas caught her arm before she fell. "Easy now," he said, tears cutting clean lines down through the dust on his cheeks. "Easy, you're home." Etta looked past him, at the herd spreading slowly into the field behind her, cattle lowering their heads to eat grass like nothing at all had happened. She looked at the broken gate lock, still hanging loose from 3 nights before. She looked at the sky, turning soft gold with the new morning light. "You did it," Silas whispered, shaking his head slow like he still could not believe it. "You went out there alone and you did it." Etta wiped a smear of dirt and dried blood from her cheek with the back of her hand. Her voice, when it came, was quiet, but steady as stone. "I told you," she said. "Nobody takes what's mine and keeps it." Silas helped her toward the house, one arm around her shoulders, while behind them the cattle spread out across the field, grazing calm under the rising sun, safe again. Word of what she did spread fast through that dry country. Ranch hands told it around campfires for years after. Children asked their grandmothers if it was true that a woman once rode a stampede of stolen cattle through canyon and dark, alone, and brought every last one home. And whenever someone doubted it, the old-timers only nodded slow, pointing toward the wooden gate of her ranch, where 3 words stayed carved deep into the wood, worn by wind and time but never fading. "I never back down."